It's episode 661 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm talking about what the Rangers bullpen will look like next year. It's been an up and down season for the bullpen. There's a lot of options, and a lot of them are starting to round into form right now. So what will that pen look like next year, and how good can it be? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Ranger fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Tuesday, August 23rd, and your Rangers are 56 and 66, just 4 wins away from totaling last year's win total and 5 away from beating it. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. Now, the Rangers just went into Minnesota after the most tumultuous week in the 4 years that I've been covering this team. One of the more tumultuous weeks in franchise history, honestly. And they come out of it with a win against a team that needs every win, a series win against a team that needs every win, and not just a win in a 3-game taking 2 out of 3. They won 3 out of 4, and they were really good in these close games. Rangers won 2 one-run games in this series. They lost 1. That was the only game that they lost, was a 1-run game, and the Rangers are now 3-1 in 1-run games in the Tony Beasley era. Try saying 1-run game 5 times fast. I bet you can't do it because I just barely did do it. But this is a huge series win for Texas. I know that series split was a little bit disappointing in that first series under Beasley, and while they were firing Chris Woodward and while they were firing John Daniels, it was just a weird week. And I got to give a lot of props to Tony Beasley and Chris Young for keeping the train on the tracks during this wild, crazy week where everything felt like it was in absolute chaos. But let's just talk about this final game of the series. Rangers pulled it out 2-1, started by one. Why do I keep saying the word one? I'm just going to say it 100 times over. Cole Reagans, who only allowed the 1 run in 4 innings, only got 2 strikeouts, did allow a couple of walks. I thought he probably could have gone 1 more inning, but props to the Rangers for seeing that high pitch count. He was not being super efficient with his pitches, went 4 innings, but did throw 89 pitches in this one. Only 55 of those were for strikes. The Rangers needed some length from their pen, so they went to Alexey, who is back up from AAA in a bullpen role now. Went 2 1/3 innings from him. He got 1 hit and 1 walk, and he was very efficient in his pitch count and was able to go pretty deep in this game. Brett Martin was able to get him out of his final inning of work in the 7th inning. Yes, doing my math right. That was the 7th inning. Josie Leclerc comes in and looks especially nasty in that 8th inning. Then Matt Moore comes in and gets the save. I don't know why he hasn't been in more save opportunities this year. This is only his 3rd of the year, but Tony Beasley is not afraid to move those roles around just a little bit. I don't think Jonathan Hernandez was available today. He worked, I believe, 2 innings. It was on Saturday, the first time that he had worked multiple innings since coming back from Tommy John surgery. If you remember, when he was up in 2020, he was able to throw multiple innings and have that nasty stuff, the fastest fastball on the Rangers team right now, and just a lot of downward motion, a lot of downward movement in it. Just a really nasty sinker that pairs well with that slider and that changeup. But he was a starter for a long time in the minors. Same with Josie Leclerc, same with a lot of these guys in the late innings, and Alexey as well, until really this year is kind of when they decided, okay, Alexey's starting pitcher is really not working out. Let's just try and throw him in the bullpen and see if this 6'5" mountain of a man can throw absolute heaters. And you know what? He can. He really can. Because he was really effective against this Twins lineup that has been really effective for most of the weekend. I mean, they got a couple of good luck triples in Carlos Correa and Gio Urshela just by some weird bounces of the ball, and some really bad luck by Nathaniel Lowe. Nathaniel Lowe hit into a triple play in this one of the hardest hit balls that was hit into a triple play in the StatCast era. I believe the second hardest hit ball that has resulted in a triple play. Marcus Semien on second and Corey Seager on first. The ball looked like it was going right into the corner, but the first baseman jumped up and snared it. That was Miranda who snared that ball. Was able to step on first, and Marcus Semien thought that ball was over his head, but it wasn't, and so he was able to get tripled off at second base and pull off the second triple play that the Twins have turned this season. I believe this is the first time the Raiders have been triple played this season. They have at least one that they have turned this season, but it looked bad. It looked bad at the time, but I mean, there's a couple of really hard hit balls by Nathaniel Lowe that ended up just being bad outs on the base paths or just really great defensive plays by the first baseman or by the center fielder. He was just getting robbed left, right, and center. I guess first base, center, and I think right field as well. Because Nathaniel Lowe, like I talked about yesterday, is on a hot streak. He had a 4-hit game this weekend. He has the most hits of anybody in Major League Baseball, I believe, since the All-Star break. Before coming into this game, I don't know if he still does coming out of it because, Luis Arias is really darn good and it's hitting 327 for the season. Nathaniel Lowe is up to 293 with his batting average, and his 811 OPS leads the Rangers at this time. But he was over in this one, which was not something that he's done a whole lot since the All-Star break. He has been the Rangers' hottest bat since that break. He has had an OPS entering this one over 1,000 for the month of August. Has just been absolutely red hot. And, sometimes when you're red hot and balls don't fall your way, sometimes you're hitting the crap out of it and it'll land right in a fielder's glove. Sometimes you'll hit it really softly and it'll just drop in left field and where absolutely nobody is because of some weird shift and you'll end up getting a double out of it. That's just the way baseball go sometimes. And it was not Nathaniel Lowe's day, but it was Corey Seager's day. He was able to get on base 3 times, a couple of singles, an RBI, and a walk. But the loudest hit ball was Adolis Garcia's. I don't know why I was calling him Garcias. That's just absolutely bonkers. The highest hit by any Ranger, I should say, 107.8 miles per hour off the bat, 453-foot bomb. He also had the second farthest hit ball in this game at 405 feet. But that 453-foot bomb, absolute moonshot, extended his hitting streak to 19 games, the longest since Elvis Andrus did it in, I believe, 2000. And it's been a hot minute. It's been a hot minute. One more, he's going to have a 20-game hit streak, which he has definitely never done. But one of the things that's been really encouraging about Adolis Garcia is that he is absolutely not falling off even the slightest bit after the All-Star break. And that has been incredibly encouraging because last year he was an All-Star. And then after the break, he just completely fell off a cliff. And it led to a lot of worries in the fact that is he going to be an everyday player? Is he going to be this good, or is this just pretty much a fluke? Coming up, we're going to look a little bit more at what Adolis has been able to do since the All-Star break, where his role is, and a little bit closer of a look at the first 8 days in the Tony Beasley era. But first, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to help spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Now, Adolis Garcia has been on a heater. He had one of the weirder hit streaks. It's been 19 games, but he hasn't necessarily hit the ball all that well during that streak. In his last 7 days, he's got an OPS of 658. You look back to his last 14 days, it's at 776. It's been about 1 hit per game, but it's been every game. In the last 7 days, he's started up that home run total just a little bit, the one home run. I mean, in the last 28 days, he only has 2 home runs. He really started off on a real tear, but has kind of fallen off that pace. Last 28 days, like I said, just 2 home runs. And that is not the Adolis Garcia that we all know and love, El Bombi, smashing baseballs and hitting the crap out of it. I mean, in the last 7 days, he's only hitting 233. And in the last 14, only 293, which is incredibly low for a guy on his hit streak, which makes it's just very much like Adolis. He's just an absolute weirdo. Just makes no sense. Very unconventional. In the second half, he is hitting pretty well. An 828 OPS since the second half. 32 games, 31 of those are starts, 135 plate appearances, 5 home runs. It's really just been the last month. Things are kind of wearing on him. He's starting to pick up a little bit in the last 2 months of the season. It looked like he was going to blow past the Rangers rookie home run record of 30 set by Pete Incaviglia, but he just barely scraped by it with 31 last year. This year, he headed into the break with 15 home runs. Thought, okay, well, maybe he's not going to hit that 30 mark. He's still probably not going to hit that 30 mark unless he goes on an absolute home run binger, which he is known to do. And he is on a hot-ish streak. I don't even know what to call it because it is so wild and weird and wacky. But he is a guy who expends a lot of energy. That's why Chris Woodward give him a lot of half days, a lot of random days off, because when he does play, he plays 100%. He doesn't know any other way to. We haven't really seen him get as many days off or half days from Tony Beasley, but again, it's only been 8 days under his reign. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see that be a continued trend. I think it probably will be because that just seems to be the type of guy that Adolis Garcia is. Now, I think he can learn to or just get his stamina up because last year was the first time he played a 162 game season. This year, he's going into it knowing a little bit more what it takes. And some of the benchmarks that I was hoping that he would hit, he's hitting. His on base is at exactly 300. That's about where I want it to be. His OPS is just literally 1 point. No, it's right there. Okay, this is confusing because on Baseball Reference it says he is slugging 450. His on base is 300, but you add those up, that's 750. But it says his OPS is 7.9, and OPS is literally on base plus slugging. Either their math's wrong or their averages are not averaging up, or their rounding is not rounding up to the right place. But the on base of 300, that's something that I wanted to see. The OPS around 750, that's about what I wanted to see. His OPS plus is 113, so he's about 13% above league average in right field. In a season where offense has been down, he has still been up. He has been consistent. He has been timely. He has been every bit the fun, energy bringing guy that the Rangers have needed. The rest of their stars are not quite as, big, high energy, vocal, screamy, whatever. Martin Perez, pretty even keeled. Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, heck, even Jonah Heim and Nathaniel Lowe, all those guys are pretty calm, low key, not as fiery, but Adolis is fiery. He brings the passion, he brings the loudness, he brings the excitement. And that is something that was desperately, desperately needed towards the back end of the stretch. And him not performing well and not being able to see as many of those jaw-dropping highlights, those ridiculous hard thrown balls from right field that gun runners out at the plate or at third base or wherever they were trying to run on Adolis Garcia. Quite foolishly, there weren't nearly as many 400 plus foot bombs, bat flips and stomping around the bases. There wasn't nearly as much of that towards the back half of last year. I think that's what made it so miserable. And even though the first half was still filled with a lot of losses, there were still some Joey Gallo bombs. There was still some great Kyle Gibson pitching performances, and there was still a lot more Adolis fun in that first half. And that is partially why, besides the abhorrent amount of losses, the second half of the season was pretty rough. But the Rangers now have a winning record in the Tony Beasley era in one-run games overall. And Marcus Semien and a couple of the other guys talked about him just getting a kind of a clean start. And I think that might be to the benefit of Chris Young. I think there was a lot of baggage with John Daniels, a lot of misplaced aggression and anger with him at some of the moves that didn't work out. And just everything that didn't work out, it was John Daniels' fault. And Nolan Ryan is the genius that did everything, even though he literally did nothing. And he has done nothing with Houston. He is not the reason the Houston Astros had success. It was just a complete coincidence. Or he heard some whispers that they were going to start doing well, and then he jumped ship on the Rangers. And it just happened to be their window of contention, and bad luck started befalling them right in 2017, 18, 19, 20, whatever. And technically good things allegedly started happening for the Astros right around then. But I think he might have wanted to step away at the end of the season or the end of next year anyway, just to kind of give Chris Young a clean slate. There's not been the bad blood intention. It's not Chris Young is not the one that built the team that lost 100 games or the team that's really losing maybe losing 90 this year, maybe losing who knows how many games this year. But and just let this just be his team, even if a lot of the pieces parts are brought to you by John Daniels. You can just kind of let his whatever toxic feelings Rangers fandom has towards him not infect Chris Young, and just let him have his own thing. And whatever problems that the Rangers fans had with Chris Woodward through not a whole lot of fault of his own, because the teams that were given to him were not teams that should have been contending, and just let Tony Beasley take over and not have any of the baggage of John Daniels or Chris Woodward associated with him or Chris Young. And I think that's a healthy thing. I still think that it's bad timing to fire John Daniels, and he deserves a much more graceful exit for all that he has done for the team. But still, I think allowing those two guys to have kind of that clean break, that fresh start, and be like, all right, that was an awful week and it sucked and it was uncomfortable for everybody involved, but we can move forward now and try and figure out what this team is without those guys, because this is a new era. It was supposed to be a new era starting this year, but now it's really, really a new era. And so we can kind of figure out, get your bearings about the team and what all is going on from there. Coming up, we're going to look at what this Rangers bullpen is going to look like next year, how many of the guys that are on this pen right now are going to be on there, and who are some other guys that might end up fighting for a spot in that pen next year. First, this word from our sponsors. Right now, the Rangers have an 8-man bullpen, and this bullpen has gone from, oh man, this is the worst bullpen in baseball, to, wow, it's actually underratedly good, to, wow, this bullpen sucks in one-run games, to, I don't really know how to feel about it, which is kind of where they are at this point. Actually, at this point, I'm starting to come back around of this bullpen might be a little bit underrated. That's because they got two huge additions at around the trade deadline, and they did not trade for them. They were just two guys that were coming back from long-term injuries, and that, of course, is Jonathan Hernandez and Josie the Clerk. Now, Rangers right now have an 8-man bullpen, and so I'm going to predict what the bullpen should look like next year, assuming they probably shouldn't go after spend their free agent money on relievers. The only one they should maybe do that on is Matt Moore, but they should probably already have an extension done, because the whole reason they didn't trade him is because, oh, well, we want to have that window to extend him. Go ahead and extend him already. Him and Martin Perez. You talked about that a lot. You got about a month and a half left of the season. Please extend them by the time the season is over, because I don't want Martin Perez to hit the free agent market. I'd be bummed if Matt Moore hit the free agent market. I still think the right choice, even if you're getting just these complete lotto ticket guys in the Dominican Summer League, or guys that are in, the Arizona Complex League, or just guys way down the system. They're like, I don't know, he could be amazing, or he could not make it to full season ball. Like, if you get like one or two of those guys for Matt Moore, I feel like they still should have done it. But you know what? They maybe weren't getting any of those offers. And so, there's only so much you can do. But you said you want to re-sign him, so go ahead and re-sign him. So let's look from the top to the bottom. In the number one spot, the closer spot, I think it should definitely be Jonathan Hernandez. This guy has been absolutely nasty. His stuff has been fantastic. He throws the hardest. You need some of those mean guys that sit in the high 90s. His average fastball velocity is in the 98%, or is 98 miles an hour in the 97th percentile. His fastball spin rate is in the 53rd percentile, which is a little interesting, because he does throw a sinker. He does not throw a four-seamer anymore. He has not thrown a four-seamer in a hot minute. I believe he threw one four-seamer in 2020. That was it. He made his debut in 2019, didn't throw a whole lot of pitches there, did not throw any pitches in 2021 because Tommy John surgery. This year, he is just full on sinker, slider, changeup. The sinker he throws 46.6% of the time, slider 38% of the time, and changeup 15% of the time. He was a starter until AA. That's when they put him in the pen. He is 26 years old. The Rangers have several years of contract control over him. He's going to be a Ranger for a long time. He has been very, very consistent in that pen in the back end as a closer in that role. And I really, really love his nasty, nasty stuff. Josie the Clerk, number 2. Again, guy coming back from injury. And his stuff, he is my biggest miss, my complete biggest whiff on prospect that I saw that I thought, I don't understand what everybody else sees in this guy. I don't get it. I don't think he's that great. I don't know why they're trying him as a starter. He walks too many. I don't see whatever nasty stuff he's got. And I was stupid. I was very stupid and wrong. Very stupid and wrong because in the bullpen, if you have a double plus off speed pitch, and that's what his cut change, it is not a slider. Please stop calling it a slider. I think he calls it a Slavio is his specific name for it, but it's a super weird and unique pitch. He has 2 changeups. He has the circle change that breaks arm side or into right-handed hitters away from left-handed batters, and the cut changeup or the Slavio, which is mislabeled as a slider very often, that breaks glove side or away from right-handers and in to left-handers. He's able to use those both very well. They look very similar coming out of the hand, and they're both really, really effective pitches. And his fastball is really effective too. The velo is in the 86th percentile, and the spin rate is in the 99th percentile. 99th percentile. That's really darn good. You can throw it that hard and spin it that much. Its averages at 96 miles an hour. He is just absolutely devastating with it. The Slavio is 84 miles an hour, plays off really well, right about 10 miles an hour. Below that, the circle change is about 6 miles an hour below that. Fastball averages at 90 mph. But he has been very effective out of the bullpen. He's been able to go multiple innings. He's been able to get back to his old form, striking out about a batter per 9 at 3.19 ERA this season, 31 innings, 30 strikeouts, a 1.03 whip. Very, very effective, very trustworthy, and the most seasoned, I would say most seasons of being an actual good major league reliever. Matt Moore has had this one season, and he's been really darn good. But he's had some other seasons as a starter where he's been really darn good. He was an all-star in Tampa Bay as a youngster, a 3.29 ERA in 150 innings back in 2013. But since he has moved to the pen, he has not really had that fantastic season, unless you want to count the 2 games that he threw. Actually, no, those were both starts. Those are both starts in Detroit. In 2019, he started 2 games for Detroit, had a 0 ERA in 10 innings. That doesn't really count. Last year, pitching out of the bullpen a little bit. This is really the first year that he's gone full reliever. I mean, last year he had 5 games that he finished, 13 games that were starts, and 24 appearances total. And last year he had a 6.29 ERA. Even with the Rangers, he did have quite a few games in the pen. That was kind of his first year trying out the non-starter bit, a 6.79 ERA, 39 games, 12 starts, 10 games finished. But this year, a 2.05 ERA in 45 games, 57 innings, 63 strikeouts. Has still had a bit of a walk problem. His walk percentile is in the bottom 4%, but the chase rate, all the other expected numbers, slugging, barrel percentage, expected ERA, and WOBA, expected batting average, all those in the top 10% of baseball. He has been very, very effective and able to go multiple innings. He is a 33-year-old reliever having a career year, though, so I really think selling high on him would have been the right move. But again, he's been very effective, and you can't hate that too much. Now, the next guy in this pen has got to be Brock Burke, number 3 in this role. I think I ranked Matt Moore. I actually ranked Matt Moore number 5. I don't know why I just talked about him like he was number 3. He's number 5. My brain is just not functioning properly in order today. Number 3 is Brock Burke, who has been incredibly effective this year. He has just been dominating in 41 games, a 1.25 ERA in 65 2/3 innings, 71 strikeouts, and a whip of 0.96. His extension is fantastic. He is getting very far off the mound. He is 6'4". He's got those long arms, and when he releases the ball, it's like it's right on you, which is why his fastball plays up from even the 95 miles an hour that it averages at this point. But still, his expected slugging, expected ERA, barrel percentage, all those in the top half at least. Expected ERA, expected WOBAs in the top 26% of baseball, batting average top 30%, strikeout rate the top 20% of baseball. He's not walking anybody. Fastball is playing up. He's not getting a lot of swings and misses, but the only ones that he does, he's kind of like the inverse Corey Seager. I talked about it maybe a couple weeks ago, but Corey Seager swings and misses at a decent rate, but doesn't strike out a lot because he's swinging and missing in early counts. Brock Burke is not getting those swings and misses on 0 strikes or 1 strikes. He's getting those swing and misses when it matters most on 2-strike counts. So he's punching guys out. He's not having to waste those swings and misses when a foul ball or a called strike will most definitely do. And that is something that I don't know if he's doing on purpose, but hey, it's working out. And it's working out really, really well. Number 4 in that pen, I'm putting Taylor Hearn in there. The last appearance that he had was just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Using that sinker really, really effectively in that game where he went 3 innings, got his first career save in relief of Kohei Arihara. He threw 22 of those pitches. And let's see, where'd we go? Why am I looking at these different numbers? Okay. But yeah, he has been very, very effective in that role, playing up quite a bit. Let's see. There we go. No, he was throwing 4-seamers. Sorry, I was looking at Kohei Arihara's numbers, but he threw 30 4-seamers in that role, threw 1 sinker, did not throw his changeup, which is a little interesting, but he got 14 swings and 5 swing and misses. On the slider, got 6 swings. Half of those were swing and misses. And the sinker, he only got 1 swing and did not get a whiff on the 1 sinker that he threw. But the fastball velo played up. It maxed out at 98.5 miles an hour. Minimum was 94.2 miles an hour, averaging 96.2 miles an hour, which is much harder than he threw on average, about 2 miles an hour higher, faster than he threw as a starter for the season. He's got an average fastball velo of 94 miles an hour. That slider is playing up as well. I would like to see that change up a little bit more. I think it's really effective. I'm not really sure why he only throws it 10% of the time, but I think it can be really effective in spurts. The slider has made a jump past it. When I saw him in AA many, many years ago, that changeup was by far his best pitch. The fastball was always had that nice velo, but I'm seeing him in that role. And in these even multi-inning relief roles, he has been absolutely wipe out, nasty, disgusting stuff that you want to see from the 6'6" lefty. Didn't work out as a starter, but he may just be a really, really, really freaking nasty left-handed reliever in those late innings. Number 5, already talked about Matt Moore. Number 6, I got to say Dennis Santana. I know he had a really incredibly rough month of July, and I don't really think that he was just as good as his ridiculous like 115-ish ERA heading into the month of July indicated before he had that injury. And I think maybe tried to pitch through it a little bit and just got completely blown up. Same for him and Brett Martin. Both of those guys were doing really well heading in the month of July, but then got ridiculously overused and were just exhausted. Their arms were dead and just needed some time off. And for Dennis Santana, the injury kind of forced him to take some time off. But I think he can be a really, really effective reliever. I don't think his spot is necessarily guaranteed, but I think he's got a pretty decent shot to be another multi-inning, mostly ground ball guy. But think that the thing that'll work against him the most is him not getting a whole lot of swings and misses, despite having that fastball that pretty much sat high 90s. I think that might end up working against him, because when you think of those primo back end relievers like Jonathan Hernandez, like Josie Leclerc, Brock Burke, and Matt Moore, those guys are striking a bunch of guys out, and that is incredibly valuable as a reliever, especially when you're coming in with runners on base or situations like that. Even though he was really good in those situations, he stopped being as good later on when he was a little bit overworked. But I still really think that having that primo strikeout stuff, either some double plus breaking pitch or just absolute primo velocity with some movement on your fastball, then you might get into some trouble. Number 7 in the pen, I'm thinking Joe Barlow in a less stressful environment, in less high stress closing game environment. I think he will play up a little bit better. That slider has been really good. He is shown in spurts he's been really darn good and pretty pretty consistent. He's back on the IL after literally one appearance coming back from a blister injury, got another blister injury, made it a little bit worse. I don't know that he's going to pitch for the rest of the season, but I really do think that some of the changes that he made, even though he doesn't have that primo velo, the breaking stuff plays up really, really well. I think he is one that's going to have to fight really hard for a spot in the bullpen, but I think he can definitely secure a spot there. And lastly, I'm picking Brett Martin, the big old lefty from the South. I believe Tennessee is where he grew up, but he has shown in spurts he can be a very effective left-handed reliever, get a lot of those ground balls. The Rangers would have 4 lefties in their pen, which would be incredible, and all of them would be, fairly freaking good. Taylor Hearn, Brock Burke, Matt Moore, all those guys can go multiple innings, and I think Brett Martin can as well. Not as much as those other guys, but I have seen him be very, very effective in that relief role. He's got those big old arms, big extension, and even though he doesn't have the most premium stuff, I believe he can be a fairly decent middle relief role in that pen. Some of the other guys that are going to be fighting for those spots are AJ Alexey, who literally just had a pretty solid performance out of the pen going 2 1/3 innings. Josh Spores, I still can't figure out what this guy is. He's got some really good strikeout numbers. He also got some pretty bad walk numbers, but he's on a real tear lately, and he might end up taking that spot from either Joe Barlow or Brett Martin. Spencer Howard, I think, has got to be a reliever moving forward. We've seen what he's done as a starter, and it's been frustrating, and I think it's time to punt on that idea, but he's got some stuff that will play up really, really well in the bullpen. He might end up working his way into either a kind of setup role or a closer role because he's got that nasty stuff. But Yerry Rodriguez is a guy who I wish they had actually pitched him when they called him up. The second he got sent back down, his first relief appearance since then was a pretty rough outing, 2/3 of an inning in Round Rock, allowed 3 hits, a home run and 3 runs, did get 1 strikeout. But before that, he was on a pretty nice streak in the month of August, had a pretty darn good month of June as well, 1.59 ERA and 9 appearances there. But once he got sent back down, it was not quite as nice from him. Chase Lee is on one right now. He has not allowed a single run at all since July 15th. He allowed 1 earned run there, and before that, he had 2 other shutout appearances. So he has been on a real tear lately in 7 2/3 innings in 6 games. In August, he has a 0 ERA, like I said, and 11 strikeouts, and does not have a single walk. He was having a bit of a walk problem once he got called up to AAA, was getting hit a little bit hard. He is another guy who does not have primo stuff, but just knows how to pitch and knows how to pitch really, really well. He's got a great nickname, the Viper. He's also from Alabama. Where we go? How do I point to it? Yeah, that can't hurt. Pointing to things and moving my head out of the way is not my specialty, but I really think that he could be fighting for one of those spots. There's not a whole lot of great relievers in AA right now, but there are a decent number of starters who I think might end up turning into relievers who do have some of that stuff that could be primo gas and primo off-speed stuff that could be really, really nasty in this Rangers pen. I think it's going to be much improved from what it's been for the vast majority of this year. Even if they do lose Matt Moore, I don't think that's going to be that big of a loss. I know he's been really good this year, but a 33-year-old reliever on a career year that he's not really done before in the pen, I don't know how much I trust it, but maybe it'll be enough. But that's going to be definitely enough for this episode of today's show. We're back tomorrow talking about the first game in Colorado, looking a little bit ahead at the schedule and how the Rangers could use the momentum of this winning series in Minnesota to spark a nice end of the season and feel much better going into next season with maybe Tony Beasley at the helm, maybe even win him the full-time managerial job. That'll do it for today's episode. Now go check out Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully. He is a walking baseball encyclopedia of knowledge from baseball's past, present, and maybe even a little bit about the future. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. That'll do it for today's show. Until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.